You are listening to the Light Overtime podcast with David Sargent and Korey Bartos. It is September 4th, 2023, and I have my own apartment. Finally. How are you today, bud?
I'm fantastic. I'm full of energy. I am so ready for fall. I'm ready for things to quiet down, and I'm very excited about it.
Oh, yeah. I can't wait for Han Solo girl energy everywhere, so... Bring out the Uggs and the vests. So today I went over to Evans and I brought over the Guatemala and the Honduras that you gave me.
Oh, yeah.
And yesterday I failed pretty miserably doing some espresso with the Guat, but I had Evan do a Chemex of it today. It was quite good. But the strawberry in that Honduras is like... crazy.
It's got
you
a lot
can smell
going
it
for
when
it.
you open the bag. You're just like, okay, I think he juiced this with some strawberries or something. It was delicious. So I pulled I think 5 shots of that, and for a light roast, had tons of flavor. About 7 grams in that Francis and Francis basket for about 20 grams ish, 21 grams of coffee, and holy cow, it was delightful. I even put one of the shots in a small cup of the Guat. Like did a red eye with the Guat and the Honduras, and damn, it was good. So
Honduras has no right to be going as hard as they have been. I'm going to keep buying as long as they keep producing.
Yeah. I've had a Honduras from you. I think this is my second one from you. I've got one from Hyperion, I believe, and I've had one from Factory, and I've liked all the Honduras coffee I've had. But what are you drinking today?
So actually, I have a Ethiopia Harar that a buddy of mine roasted. I just finished the bag up. I only had 15 grams, so I added in 5 grams of Guat just to beef up with the chocolatiness a little bit. So it's got a blueberry chocolatey thing going on.
Nice. Heck yeah. Loved it.
It's great.
Love to hear it. So obviously it's been a while. The moving process has been far more exhaustive than I thought it was going to be. We were going to shoot like 2 weekends in a row, and it was just absolute madhouse. But I'm here. I might have to fight some reverb. Big empty room. I just got some futons, and I'm going through all of my stuff. But it's good. My brain has already been starting to heal. I have a king size bed now.
Oh, nice.
I just have a bedroom with my bed in it and like clothing. So I don't have it crammed with my guitars and my computers and all that. I sleep like a baby now. It's awesome. So I'm doing quite well.
I'm so happy.
Yeah, first weekend. I haven't gone out to eat once because I just have a kitchen now.
Wonderful.
It's so good. So what have you been shooting?
Kind of a lot. The funny thing is, the last time we were supposed to record this episode, I was going to have done a shoot with the city, but we had to reschedule that. So the last thing I shot, I just got done editing a whole wedding. I sat down and banged it out in a whole day because it was like the first day that I had like a ton of time not designated to roasting or anything else. So I did this whole wedding, which was only technically like a half-day wedding. So I was technically on from 5 to 9 that day, and I came home with roughly 3,500 images. I had culled some highlights, but I didn't cull the whole thing, so I sat down, culled for about an hour, and edited for about 5, and pulled out roughly 295 shots for a finished gallery for them, which was great. This was an awesome wedding. I don't know if I told you much about the details of it, but it was the couple were in their upper 70s. They reunited at their 50th high school graduation, which I think is just adorable. And so after 10 years of being together after that, they finally decided to get married. So this is kind of really just an awesome celebration for the two of them. And there was tons of people at the reception. I did want to mention, actually, it was one of the most difficult to shoot weddings as far as the ceremony goes. This was an Episcopal church, and a small one, and so they like some churches have strict rules and guidelines for all the vendors involved, including photographers. And this one in particular gave me exactly 2 spots to stand I had options.
Nice.
And the really frustrating thing about it was this was a pretty well hyphenated ceremony for them. They wanted it kind of to be in and out. It was about a 30-minute service. The problem with that also was that those two spots were not such that I could get from one to the other easily or quickly. I had to run. Well, I didn't, but I would have had to run out of the building, around the building, up some stairs, back into the building from the back way, and come around to a side door that would have given me side access to see the groom's face and not the bride at all. That was the only other access I could have had, knowing that it was a quick one. And also, I found out real shortly beforehand that they were going to, instead of stand up there the whole time, be up and down as different people came up to speak in between different parts of the service. So I made the real fast audible to stand center aisle in the back the whole time, which is absolutely not the way I like to shoot a ceremony, but you got to work with what you're given. Yeah. And it actually turned out great. So I was, able to use the 20 mil and the 50 mil. I put the 85, I believe, on the A7 IV and stuck the 20 mil on the A7C just for a little extra reach because I needed it being in the back. It wasn't a very large church, but I certainly needed some differentiation between the bodies, between the focal ranges, because having exactly one spot to plant your feet and shoot an entire ceremony doesn't leave you with many options for unique visual storytelling.
Yeah, that's brutal.
So it was challenging, probably my most challenging ceremony, but I think I delivered. I really liked the images, and the reception was wonderful. It was in Harbor Springs, cute cottage, nice. Backyard tent, just golden light, perfect temperature. Everybody was happy. It was, and they danced all night with everybody. Their friends who were in their 70s as well, but like 20 somethings and 30 somethings. People just got engaged, and everybody was just having a great time. So that was shooting that wedding two weeks ago, I believe. And so I just finished editing. They haven't gotten a chance to look at them yet, but I really like what I was able to deliver them.
Nice.
Yeah. As far as what I just got done shooting was last night.
Oh yeah, tell me about that. So the last I saw, you had not seen any Northern Lights, and you weren't sure what you were going to do. You said you'll probably just play around in the dark. How did that go?
I did just play around in the dark.
You were definitely a little goofy. You were super tired or something.
You're like summer, man.
You're like, I don't know, man. We're making it weird. And then that was the last time I saw your stories.
Yeah. I had no service out there, so I wasn't gonna try and make this whole string of videos about what I was doing. I was just like, screw it. I'll just let people know what I had been up to, and then whatever I get into, I'll maybe share later. But the Northern Lights never popped off. As far as I could tell, I looked back at some of my apps. I have a specific one that shows people can post what they're seeing and what the data was, and it never really popped off last night. So I got there. I did intend to film a coffee video, so I did that kind of like on the way out of the house. And then when I got there, just like, here's an update, here's what I have, and that's all well and done. And I'm actually editing it right now. But ICM, have you heard of ICM?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who haven't, ICM stands for Intentional Camera Movement. And this is one of those things that I kind of pull out of the bag kind of last minute. I don't tend to go out intentionally practicing ICM, but it's a real cool way for me. I like to get out of like a creative rut. It's short, whether that's a short period of a rut or a long one, doesn't really matter. I find it a lot of fun. So the moon was super bright and the Northern Lights were not coming out. What that did give me though was natural light on foreground subjects and landscapes that I wasn't going to have if it was a new moon. So I felt like I should have at least spent some time shooting. So I used the ICM technique. I was shooting all kinds of ranges of exposure times from like a quarter second up to like 4 seconds. just experimenting. And that's totally what ICM is about, is total creative experimentation. I haven't got a chance to look at the images on the computer, but I was just playing around with very isolated subjects. And this was the first time that I think I've ever intentionally gone into the menus on any camera that I've ever owned to change my aspect ratio. So I was playing kind of like how Thomas Heaton does square aspect ratio in camera. That's what I did. Because I really wanted symmetry. ICM is like you move the camera and you lose basically all definition of the subject you're shooting, and that's intentional. It starts to look very painterly, watercolor, streaky, blurry, all these things, and what you are left with is basically blobs of color, some form and shape that happens by chance, basically how you twitch and move the camera. So I changed it to a square aspect ratio for 90% of that shooting, and had just a ton of fun, like bouncing around the beach, looking for like birch trees and different ways that the moonlight was like casting light on the dunes, and just anything that had some form and some amount of moonlight on it, I was playing with ICM. So I'm really excited actually to get on and look at some of the images, because what I saw on the back of the screen looked super like mystical, ethereal, real like foggy looking, and I kind of started developing like little techniques for certain movements to make things look the way that I saw on accident and go, like, let's recreate that. Like, let's make V shapes and let's pull back and forward real fast. And it's a real fun way to just like go out and do something very weird and get some interesting results.
Yeah, I definitely have experimented with it a lot, even before I was like an actual photographer. My mom had an old Rebel, and I really like doing slow shutter zooming.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot of fun. I think some of my earliest photos are like me taking amplifier photos and, you know, hitting the shutter and pulling the zoom. But I got into trying to make like abstract art with it, because when we would shoot bands back in the day, like flash shutter drag was like the only thing that looked good in like 2007 for like house shows and stuff. Is you just have a hard flash and then you just make all the lights on the amps look crazy, and it was like, oh yeah, look how good of a photographer I am. It was awful. But you know, and I played with that recently with night vision and stuff, and we actually took one of those photos. You've seen the one, because I've posted it on Threads and everything, of Zach with the light going off of his helmet and the nods. It's the black and white image I took. We're putting that on the back of a t-shirt, which is kind of sick, but it's definitely fun. Getting more in tune with the relationship between your shutter and exposure is just, you know, if you've never done it, it's worth playing around with. I've seen people do it really, really successfully in street photography, where you kind of like, you can kind of cheat an element into being relatively still, and then getting a lot of really, really gnarly abstract blurring and stuff. Yeah, if you're, you know, some people mostly shoot like shutter drag or you know, just like super abstract stuff like that. I'm into it. Especially if your plan A kind of failed. It's always a good plan B or C.
Well, the plan A is like, I don't have any control whether this happens or not. So
exactly.
We're going to plan B.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, it was a fun night though. Yeah.
Yeah. It's definitely been a while since I've just been fooling around. Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember like what I've been shooting recently. Just stuff for work has been pretty decent. I'm kind of getting back into slowly pushing out guitar content on my guitar Instagram and page. Jumped on the Tumblr last night and made a up-to-date rig post for my old Tumblr blog. And then I was at a pirate party Saturday. So I think I have a cell phone photo I can throw up of me drinking a Stroh's as a pirate on Saturday. But I had taken, my portrait was going to be from this pirate party, and my Lexar card died. And so the first time a camera that was mine, I've had one die at camp. I've had one card die at camp, and I've had one card die, if I can remember correctly, this one. So Doesn't feel good. Fortunately, I didn't have any work stuff on it that I needed. I didn't have any other like super important stuff. I'm pretty good about dumping my card. But also I realized that I've used these cards in 4 different cameras. Like the one that failed has been in 4 different cameras since I switched to Sony.
Wow.
So was that 2018? Not 2018. 2019. So I don't even want to know how many times I have formatted that card, how many, tens and tens of, maybe even close to hundreds of hours of video have been on that card, because I used it in my A7R4, my A7S III. It's been in both of the A7 IVs. I actually think these Lexars might have been in my GH5. So that's the lesson to, after it's been quite a while and you got a good amount of cycles on those cards, you should probably get something fresh.
Yeah. That makes me think I should probably do the same at some point soon.
Yeah, I evaluated what I had, and I have 1 pair of cards that are like probably good to go, and I think I'm going to switch those into my primary camera. I think the ones in my work camera now are pretty decent, but fortunately, I think the next time I have any kind of big gig, or I have a couple of trips planned for next year, I think I'm going to get fresh cards for those, because even when it was inconsequential, it was still devastating. And
yeah. So those attempted photos are gone, huh?
Yep.
Yeah, that's a bummer. No, thank you.
Yeah, just a couple of goofy pirate portraits, but
still, like anything you can get excited about, it's a real bummer to get it, have it lost.
Yeah. So I think this will be a decently large section, so we're just going to jump into it off of that. But so I have here, obviously, despite having a handful of extra weeks, I was reflecting on why maybe the people that I was reaching out to didn't end up submitting portraits. And I realized a lot of the guys that I talked to, they either are relatively new to photography, or portraits are outside of their wheelhouse. They do a lot of like landscape or gear stuff, because a lot of the guys I talk to are like guitarist people and things like that. Mm-hmm. And I realized, so between them maybe being uncomfortable trying to get portraits, maybe also they were uncomfortable sharing like close images of their family and stuff like that on a podcast. So maybe not the best as a really young podcast to try to get some portraits up. However, I forgot to save them, but the person who submitted the claw in our black and white one, he has like portraits he's shot of like Carson Daly and stuff, which is pretty sick.
All right.
But they were like old career photos, and I want to stick to like somewhat recent things, so that's why they're not included. So if you are listening to this, Charles, like those photos were banger, but they're just they're not new, and I want to try to get people to shoot during the times that we're making this happen. So that may be why I think it was probably a little bit more of a challenge to get people to partake. However, to begin this, I wanted to ask you, just if you had to make a definition of what a portrait photo is to you, what is it? If you had to define it, like if you were teaching a class.
Boy, I mean, I never like to lock anybody into thinking like something has to be some way. So
I agree.
I could absolutely accept if a submission was a picture of a dog, or I mean a bug. I think it's like, to me, portrait is it's like 2 things. If somebody asks me to take their portrait, I think I have an idea of what they want. But then if I think I want to tackle a portrait, I don't just say, okay, I need to find somebody. Because I definitely think that the subject can lend to looking a certain way to make it seem similar to the way everyone does tend to think like a portrait. So what I mean by that is like, oh man, it can be difficult to put this into words, but I think a still could have portraitly qualities. The way you approach it, like tighter features. I tend not to think that a wide shot really is a portrait. That's just me, though. Like I said, I just don't like to be locked in. So I think that there's a lot of things that
Sure.
you could approach with a portrait in mind, and it doesn't even have to be human. I don't even think it has to be alive, to be honest.
Yeah. But you made an interesting distinction right away. And for me, I think that for something to feel like a portrait, there needs to be a certain level of character being portrayed.
Yeah.
Right? Like it needs to be showing something. And so you said if it was like a dog, which I do pet portraits all the time. People hire me to do pet portraits. But you said a bug, which I disagree with because I don't find bugs as sentient as dogs. And it's harder for me.
We're going into sentience, huh? I
don't
know.
And it's not hard and fast because, like I said, I truly believe you can do an inanimate object as a portrait. But for some reason, bug breaks that for me. I don't. If you can show me a bug photo that has portrait qualities, cool. But it's an esoteric thing. It's like a portrait is an idea, and it can be a whole lot of things. But I do have two. I have two definitions to look at. So one on Wiki was a portrait is a painting, photograph, sculpture, or other artistic representation of a person in which the face and its expressions are predominant. The intent is to display the likeness, personality, and even the mood of the person, which I agree with everything besides the fact that it has to be a person.
Sure.
I think the expressions are pretty predominant. And then I think it should be displaying the likeness, the personality, or the mood of whatever you're doing, right?
Yeah.
The second is much simpler, from Merriam-Webster, a pictorial representation of a person usually showing the face. And I like usually showing the face because I don't believe you necessarily need someone's face to show the character of a person, and something like that. So like one of the examples I was reading, I think it was the Met had a bunch of like teen photo submissions, and then they had little blurbs with all their photos. And one young girl said it could be like feet on a skateboard could be a portrait, and I agree. Like especially if you're talking about like a skater who clearly has very worn in shoes, and like there's something about his life. Like I could see somebody using that as like a profile picture because it tells you exactly who they are. It's like, these are my old ass Vans on my skateboard and we're kicking down the street, right? You're like, oh, that's Chuck. That's the dude.
Yeah.
But then I wanted to try and group what most people kind of pack into the genre of a portrait. And what I came up with was, 6 different kind of categories. And most of them, I think, are probably reasonable. So I have environmental portraits. I mixed fine art, conceptual, and surreal because they generally all kind of blend together. Glamour and boudoir. Self-portraits, which we didn't really talk much about, but I wanted to avoid that for this one for myself. I wasn't going to do a self-portrait. That would be kind of a cop-out for me. I usually do one like every quarter or semi-annually. And then family and groups, kind of the same thing, like group portraits and family portraits, and headshots. And those last two, they get further away, I think, for photographers that consider themselves artists, because I think group and family shots and headshots feel like your school photo, but those are portraits. Right. Like that's what they are. But you're like, I'm an artist, damn it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it was fun. The lack of submissions made me really kind of look at this, and I wanted to kind of dig through what we thought, like a portrait means, what it is.
Sure.
So that was kind of interesting. I think that the most important part for me in a portrait is that there's some kind of character being, like, I don't want to use the word portrayed, but like it's very clear what you're getting from an image. I have a few here. I pulled some old ones that I really enjoyed, that I liked. My buddy Ryan did submit 2, and they're both on a Pentax 6.7, so I chose those because they're fire. And then your buddy Eric, I chose 2 from his portfolio he sent, and then I have yours here. So you want to start with yours?
Sure.
We can pull that up, and we can talk about. You kind of, did you tell me the story, or did you talk about that a little bit on the show already?
I think I just talked a little bit about doing it.
Yeah.
This was from that episode where I feel like I failed. Remember going into the shoot, having this full idea of, specifically, the idea of what I wanted to do at the time was have him standing on a sidewalk, and I'm looking perpendicular at him with the opposite sidewalk behind him. And my hope was that there would be a lot of people, and I wanted to practice with long exposures or multiple exposures of blending to just make a really ethereal, almost unidentifiable background with him sharp in focus. And that didn't happen because I just wasn't aware that Petoskey was so goddamn quiet on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So we just, had to hit that plan B. So we just did a walkabout. And this was towards the end. I would say like 75% through the rest of, we spent probably an hour, maybe an hour and a half. And what was really fun, his name is Tristan. What's really fun about hanging out with Tristan, which I haven't done a lot, and if you're listening to this, Tristan, I'd love to hang out with you some more, is that he loves to express himself, talk about everything that's on his mind, and just like give you everything you want to hear about any kind of subject matter that he's like knowledgeable about. I loved it. Everything that he was feeding me, I was just enjoying the conversation with, and that never really stopped while I was shooting. So almost all of the shots I got of him were like mid-sentence of him just like having a good time hanging out with me, which was really cool. When I took these shots, I was feeling really down, like, this like was not what I wanted. And now looking back, I'm like, this is actually fantastic for us both. Like, I think these are great for him to have, and I feel like this actually was a good shoot for this subject, for this person, his character. So when you say like portrayal of character, I think this pretty much nails it. Like, he is mid-thought, he's trying to put words together, his brain is just gearing, trying to express himself. And so mid-sentence, mid-thought, he's like working on it. And this one I just loved. I love a good actual like side portrait. I love that view of a person. Sure. And he's got the tattoos and the way he's stretching his skin. If you're listening as an audio listener, I highly encourage you to go to YouTube and watch this episode because we've got lots to show today. That was my image and I loved it.
Yeah, the photos will be in a link in the show notes too if you just wanted to pop in and look at the photos. Sure. It was funny. You said that this was Tristan, and then I had to go to your Facebook and see if this was the Tristan I know. And I've hung out with him back when I was because I was friends with Chance and all those guys.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wild. Pretty wild to see an old face I haven't seen since maybe 2015 or 2014. Mm-hmm. But very cool. Yeah, he had a lot more hair the last time I saw him. So, so like from that view, wouldn't have guessed that was the same guy. But very cool. You were describing him. You said Tristan, and you were describing him, and I was like, I think that's the guy. That's funny
for sure. Yeah. Specs wise, you could probably guess A7 IV 50 mil, probably at f1.4. We just stood in front of a pinkish brick wall, which I loved, contrasting his darker shirt and the tattoos and everything. And it was in the morning light, probably about 7 o'clock as the sun was coming up, and it was reflected light because the sun had not come up above the buildings yet.
Yeah, I like it. Super sharp. Yeah, it looks super good. I definitely will have to ask you to show me some more from that set, just because I'm sure they're pretty slick.
Yeah, I've been waiting for this podcast to drop so that I can release the rest.
Yeah, like I said, you had emailed me like last week sometime, and I didn't look at it until we got it sorted today, just because I didn't want to break the surprise for myself. But right on. You love to see it. I'm gonna start next with Ryan's photos. So these are both, I'm going to make sure that I get the specs right because the specs are great. So these two photos are shot on a 6.7. The one of the man is Portra 400, and the one of the woman is Lomo 800. So we're going to start with Fee because the tones in this image are awesome. And if you're
on the bottom left in our chat,
it's the one with all the leaves and the woman sitting.
Oh, dang! Look at that.
So that's Lomo 800 and a 6.7.
Okay.
And you just, there's something about it that it's not 35, man. I love a 6.7. I think it's great. The tones off this film are beautiful.
So punchy too.
I don't know if like the outfit was like chosen to be, but it pops from the green and then the oranges in the woods and stuff like that. So this is sick. Like, yeah, it's obviously super, super detailed.
I mean, a cool place to shoot in. That is really, I mean, the architecture looks very interesting, full of plant life, and it's just, those greens are incredible.
Yeah. And then the red glasses off the green background, you look right into her eyes as soon as you open the photo. And then you explore from out, from center out. And it's, the fall off's beautiful. Dude, a 6.7, man. Come on.
I know. If I was this person, I would be the subject here. I'd be so happy to have had this taken of me. I mean, what a cool shot.
I'm not super sure. I know Ryan through guitar and stuff, and we've known each other for years, but I think this is his partner. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
So like, I know that they're relatively close as far as like I have, random things that I've seen, but excellent photo. Big fan. Again, the tones and the colors in this image are awesome. And then the second, he sent 4, but I chose 2 to look at. The next one is like the brown one with the man in the wheelchair.
Yeah, okay. I thought so.
So this is Portra 400 on a 6.7 again.
Yeah.
And the freaking framing with the light coming through the circle and stuff right around the wheelchair is super cool. It's just,
I love the shadow. Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. And in a really, really hard space it looks, I don't know if he did any like post cropping or anything, but like all the lines are super good. Again, the tones are very different. It's not quite as vibrant as the other one, but it's just got that beautiful quality to it.
It's super cohesive. Yeah.
It's really hard to be that wide and make a powerful portrait.
It's nice that you can be that wide and still have some fall off to make it look that dreamy.
Well, that's medium format, baby.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Absolutely. Great stuff.
Yeah. You had said while describing that you're not a fan of wide portraits, and that made me excited about these because that's a different vibe. Like when you can have that like really gnarly medium format fall off, and then have just enough of an environment. Because like this would be wider than what I would normally say is an environmental portrait. This is a pretty wide shot.
Oh, you think so? See, okay, I don't know if I said that and misspoke, but I definitely am. Not that I'm not a fan of a wide portrait. It's just not what I go to when I think portrait.
Of, right. Yeah.
But when I look at these are absolutely, I mean, in my mind, environmental portrait, yes, and successful, absolutely.
Yeah.
I don't think they're too wide, personally, as an environmental portrait.
If these were on a full frame camera, I bet everything would be in focus. It would look like a cell phone shot. Like that's what I mean. Like it's pretty wide.
Sure. Okay.
But it's really good.
It is.
I'm a fan.
He
does a bit of teaching, and he shoots on a couple of different cameras, and really cool dude. Like I said, known for a long time, and those ones. The other couple were great, but those hit. So
good stuff.
I decided to share them. Thanks for the if you're listening to this, Ryan. Thank you for the submissions. It was pretty good. Mm-hmm. And then, so did I send you the 2 Eric shots that I was gonna? I'll do that real quick.
Go ahead and throw them up.
So then your buddy Eric Schaefer. So how do you know him? If you want to introduce him somewhat or something.
He and I have never met, actually. This is one of these types of people that we just connected through Instagram a long time ago, and he's kind of he's certainly in my favorites list on Instagram, which is a feature that I use kind of often, actually.
Sure.
To just kind of keep up with the people that I actually talk to in an easy way. Like, it's super nice to go into that favorites tab and just see boom, boom, boom. You're just scrolling through those people you really want to catch up with.
Yeah.
And Eric has been building on this series for a long time. I think years. And I don't actually know much about the context of this series, but I could probably venture a guess that this is just a way to kind of archive great moments with his friends, and times when he's doing things that are really valuable to him, and the time he spends with these people. That's my guess. What I really loved about this, which is funny to me because it's counterintuitive to my opinions on a 35 mil lens on a full frame camera. I don't like shooting with a 35 mil. You know this. However, when it's a great lens with a shallow depth of field that you can work with, and the way that the portraits he has shot with this 35 mil lens it just makes these people seem larger than life, like
Sure.
like they've got a lot about them that you want to learn about. There's a little ominous characteristic about some of these images. I don't know if it has to do with the focal range or not. It's just an interesting thing to note that I really, really liked the images that I did see with the 35. And later on in the series, he switched up to an 85 mil lens, and they're great too. But they're a little more classic portrait, in my opinion, which is nice. But there's a different character to the 35 that he used to use more often. Both of those images I love for sure.
Yeah. So I'll pull them up in a sec. What struck me about these portraits when I first saw them, and it looks like, there's outdoorsy looking folk in most of them. There's about 17 photos here. There's a couple of different, there's like a wedding one and a couple of other ones. But what really struck me is there's these very famous, they're famous because they're usually used when someone's talking about Jimmy Chin, the National Geographic climbing photographer. He's like friends with Alex Honnold. He helped shoot, his documentary and stuff. Amazing photographer, but it looks like his main, headshot thing that they use for all of his stuff. And I was like, oh, this is it reminded me of John, I can't remember that dude's name, something Glass. These incredible climbing outdoors photographers always make sure they take this style, headshot portrait before when they're out on some kind of adventure. And it's cool because they're sharp. These are some sharp images.
Yeah. And I'll just to clarify, this is, Eric Schaefer. He's downstate Michigan, and I want to just make sure that I have the right. Here, let's go to his profile.
And we'll put his links and stuff in the show notes for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's a better idea. Anyway, he's a brand photographer, so he's often working with outdoor lifestyle brands. So he's very good at shooting features of people and what they're doing and what tools they're using. So if you follow him, you're going to see, firearms use, you're going to see hunting, a lot of fishing, and the stories too. I mean, he nails it. I mean, sharp as a tack on everything that he seems to produce. I just love his work. Yeah, and I asked him to submit because I really have followed this series for a while, and I wanted to talk about it and share it.
Sure, awesome. So the link that we have was 17 images, and these two instantly hit me. I'm a big fan of pipes. My best friend Maxwell, he's a blacksmith, and he smokes a pipe. And every time I've been around him, that's just I just smell it in my brain, right when I see one. Love the smell of pipe tobacco. Clearly doing something outdoors, a cool weather cap and stuff, but just excellent profile portrait. And then this other one is just this dude's just stoic as hell. This looks this portrait makes this guy look, who I have no idea who the hell he is, just looks super important. This is this is his headshot for an expedition he just got off of, or they're talking about him in an article, and this is the thing. This is a stellar shot. It's really easy to try and get these shots and them fall kind of short. I really like trying to get headshots like this of friends and stuff, but it's really hard to just get that perfect. I don't know. There's some extra just oomph that comes from some of these things, and his shots are great. The whole freaking lot of these are great.
Yeah, he didn't give me a whole lot of context. I guess he's traveling this weekend, which is cool. But the one thing he did note was that, interestingly, his favorite of the bunch is the only one in there that's low key. I know that you guys aren't seeing this right now, but I liked that too. The rest of these, like these two here, all have this high key, you know, brightness to them. They're all black and whites. That's one of the markers of this series.
Yeah.
Most of these are high key, I would say, and the one is, it looks like it's in some type of shop, not outdoors, and it's more low key lit, and I like that too.
Is that the one with the Cedar Run decoy hat?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll throw that one up too. This is fantastic. That was probably my third. That's a really great shot.
Yeah.
Again, it's like somebody's about to tell me a story about this guy. That's why I'm looking at this photo. It's remarkable for sure.
Yeah. Good stuff with Eric.
Yeah. Great shots. It's tough getting that many really good shots of a lot of different people. But yeah, super cool. So I definitely appreciate that he was willing to send some of that in.
For sure. Thank you, Eric.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So I pulled 7. I have a bunch of shots here that I want to kind of burn through really fast. The first one being the very majestic looking dog profile. So this is my old roommate Yoshi, and for me, I obviously I talk about dogs and how much I've shot them before. I don't think I've shared that much of my dog photography on here, but I grew up rescuing basically every dog that we could. We would often find strays or whatever and try to find them homes, and then nobody would ever turn up, and then we wouldn't want to get rid of them anyway. So like I lived in town, not out like in a rural area, and at times we had like 9 dogs in the house.
Wow.
We converted an entire bedroom to like kennels and stuff with a door that went to the back with a big outdoor kennel, so we could just house as many dogs as we could. I was the responsible son, so when my folks would be gone, it was always up to me to watch all these dogs. Sure. So I really, really enjoy being in the company of dogs. I can't help but see all the character. I know some people don't really love dogs that much or whatever, but like, man, I could shoot dogs or really dope people photos forever and never get bored, because there's just so much to them. And this will always be one of my favorite photos because, a handful of years not really living with my own dog, this was the first time I had one in the house again where I could just we would pal around, and we still pal around to this day. He's getting pretty old now, but he's an awesome dog. Me and my old roommate Dylan, who owns Yoshi, we are joking about putting a wiki together because we always tell people all these outlandish stories about how he's like thousands of years old and he's been everywhere, from ancient Egypt to being a used car salesman in like San Antonio, Texas, while he was evading the cartel and selling drugs and stuff, like all these wild stories about him through time. So
love it.
But this was shot on a GH5, and it looks
it's a beautiful shot.
It looks spectacular for such a small sensor.
Yeah.
It's a really good one. Big fan.
I love it. I love the tight crop on it, but you still have all of him. And to have a dog that sits and poses for you like that, mine certainly would not.
Dude,
mine is a challenge.
Yeah, it's so good. He's well trained though, and pretty old. So
sure.
But also the best eyelashes in the game for some reason. My man's eyelash game is he's a beautiful pup.
Yeah. That is a nice shot.
This next one is a profile shot. This was also on a GH5, but it's on a Metabone speed booster with the Canon Mark II 70-200 f2.8, the L lens. And this is of my Polish-German buddy at camp a handful of years ago. He had these Raoul Duke glasses, and he was just something else. His nickname was Zebra, and we palled around quite a bit. He's a wild man. I called him Son.
These might not be in the same order for me as they are for you.
So the green one with the guy blowing smoke out of his nose.
Oh. Hold on. Oh, there it is. Okay, yep. That's at the end.
All right. So
cool. Okay. You're employing a technique that I do a lot with wildlife photography, which is using foreground elements to blur out. Yeah. I love that technique. Yes.
Super good. We were just at the lake chilling one day. This was late in the summer, and we were just over it. grabbed a couple drinks, went out, and I was just going to take some portraits. I have a handful of them, but I really, really like this one. He looks like the spitting image of freaking James Franco in this, and it's cool. But the yellow pop from the shades, and then the little bit of that yellow is, I think, a hard beam coming through trees. And then there's some dandelions, and it's pretty fire. But
it's a great shot.
Just a good one. Big fan of that.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, it's like a sepia tone looking one with my buddy Nate and his mother sitting on the hood of a car. This is in our hometown. This is like
cinematic.
This is basically like in camera. This is with a GH5, so it's 4:3 aspect ratio because that's the sensor. And this looks like a freaking movie, man. And
was this a setup shot, or did you just take this candidly?
They were having a conversation, and I was bopping around. Yeah, and it literally looks like it's a scene from a movie. I love this image. I want
to see the rest of the scene.
Yeah, right. It was wild. So we're at the Blue Water Bridge in Port Huron, and like it's rare that Nate comes home and I'm also in our hometown. So we went and got a drink with his mom, and
I think one of the reasons why I thought that it was candid and cinematic was that there's two totally different facial expressions here. It immediately makes me wonder, what the heck are they talking about?
Yeah, they're just on some real shit, because I was walking around shooting random stuff and doing things, and
I like his shirt too.
They were catching. Oh yeah, he's got style. That's Nathan, yo. That's my boy. We did my first short film ever. He wrote and directed, Mad Lonely, and we've done a bunch of goofy stuff on YouTube that we've done. It's good stuff.
Very cool.
But man, the colors, I basically didn't edit this. That's like
awesome.
I gave it a little punch, and it was one of those nights where like the sky just turned wild color, and I was like, this is sick. But also GH5, man, just like crushing it with that camera. The next one I'm looking at is a man doing a pour over. Okay. This is in Shibuya in Tokyo, Japan. This was at this stall that he's making all this in. Basically, that left wood is where it starts, right at the left of the frame, and then it goes to the right. That's the whole little shop, and it's in the middle of the city of Tokyo.
That is what it looks like to how I feel in my farmer's market booth, like doing all the work I do inside of a 5-foot space. Heck yeah. And this is exactly what is in my mind the type of shot that I think of as an environmental portrait.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
This encapsulates everything that he's probably passionate about, you know.
And it's sweet. So they have like a couple of metal like pipes. That's what they use for the 2 seating chairs that you can sit down at and wait for your coffee. It's basically just like 4-inch pipes with 2 elbows and a flat. So you can like sit there while they make your coffee really quick. This was like pretty much outside of our Airbnb, like just down the road. And so we went there a few times, and him and this other woman worked there, and they were super nice. They made amazing coffee, like spectacular, high level, like, super into it. Would chat about the beans, where they got them, everything like that, and super friendly people. And I asked him if I could take some photos. And I loved this one.
I'm glad you asked. Yeah.
Yeah, this is actually a re-edit because I'm a little better now than I used to be. It was a lot punchier. I really leaned into the teal and orange on my first edit of this back in like 2019.
I think you had it right too. Yeah.
Yeah. So I toned that down a little bit more naturally, so his skin tones weren't so crazy. And but to be in as mixed light as this is, I'm very proud of this image. I like it quite a lot.
Oh, I would be. Yeah, good stuff.
But yeah, that would be essentially what I do as environmental portrait, and that's a 12 to 35 f2.8 on the GH5. Wow. So that's like the 24 to 70 f4 equivalent, more or less. But super sharp, super awesome.
Looks nice, yeah.
Big fan. This one with the canoes and then the 2 guys in it. These are just 2 absolute freaking lads. Salt on the right, he's from Scotland. And Benji on the left is from somewhere in the UK, both from the camp that I worked at for many years. And this, I don't have a lot of posed shots where I ask people if I could just take a photo of them real quick that I think I like, that like still don't feel necessarily posed. Like they're still giving me like what I
wouldn't have guessed. It looks natural.
And well, yeah, because like they got hand on the shoulder
Sure.
and stuff. But I was just like bopping around. I was like, "Hey, fellas!" And like they turned, and he put his arm over Salt's shoulder, and it's just like those are two of the nicest dudes you'll ever meet in your entire life. And
Well, that's a great reaction because you could pick any other two people and they'd go, "Oh, what do you want me to do?"
Yeah.
Instead, they just did what felt natural to them. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, and I'm the photographer, right? Like that was my
sure.
job there, so they knew. And like I was really close to Salt. He was one of my good buddies.
Sure.
But yeah, just the tones here are really nice. They're mostly natural.
Yeah.
I did this one a little filmic. I added a little grain and stuff like that. But again, this is a GH5, hence the aspect ratio. And yeah, hard to do.
I have to note, I mean, I love the probably less intentional, but if it was, the canoe placement behind them looks really striking as part of a background. But the way that on the right side, the middle and the bottom canoe flows in form with like the hand and the shirt to the next canoe, it looks so flowy. I know that couldn't have been intentional, but it looks so, I don't know. There's something about it that makes it really fit nice. I like it. It makes the brain feel good looking at it.
Yeah, and again, this is a 70 to 200 Canon on a GH5 with the speed booster all day, and it's super clean. I'm into it.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, 2 more. Just burning through a bunch of these. The next one is the other dog photo. This is probably one of my favorite posed dog images I've ever shot in my life.
That is a wonderful shot.
This was when I had just gotten the 24-70 G Master. And so this is on my A7R4. And this big dog is just like the love of my life. I was obsessed. She's nearly as big as me. And every moment I got, I would lay on the ground with this dog. Didn't matter if it was dirt, mud, like the gross floor and like the office of the, this was also at camp, and just a big freaking cuddle monster. But I just said, Willow.
Again with the eyelashes too.
Oh yeah, this is a beautiful dog.
It really is. I mean, just the fur pattern in this particular shot, just flowing like ripples in a river or something. It's so soft as it falls off a little bit towards the bottom too. I mean, compositionally, the element of the white fur on the chest, like leading up into the face and creating this almost like up through and curl back as a composition of the portrait itself, it really leads into it very well.
Right on. Yeah, this makes my brain happy. It just everything about it makes my brain happy. The tones are super good. The lighting outside was just perfect. Because this was
one
like
of those shots where you took it and you go, well, that's it. I can't take a better one of this dog.
I certainly tried.
Yeah.
I tried to photograph this dog every time she was around. She was one of my favorite dogs I've ever met. But yeah, there's no chance. Just perfect and just like damn crispy. This is one of those images. This is one of the things that will make me go back to like getting the A7CR. Because that sensor, man, that 61 megapixels is just so freaking bomb. Like, it's so good. There's just something about it. It's so much detail.
Yeah.
And I got one more, which is to date still my favorite photo I've ever taken, even though it's kind of silly and pointless. But I know that in 30 years from now, this will still be one of the most important photos I've ever taken. So this is of my father.
Yeah, I thought
so.
And
most of the time, my dad is just an absolute goof. 90% of my photos of my dad, he's flipping me off or like goofing because he's a child and we're children together and we just do silly shit. And this was the day I got my first Helios 44M.
Cool.
And I threw that on. It was on a GH4 at the time with a Metabone speed booster, the 0.64. So despite being a micro four thirds sensor, I'm getting a lot of help from that speed booster to get some pretty gnarly bokeh in this.
Yeah.
And I was not used to manually focusing like soft lenses like that, and it just turned out so sharp, and like the catch lights in his eyes are so perfect to me, and it literally was just like I'm sitting in front of him chatting about like cameras or something, and he's like having a cigarette outside, and I just like tell him to look up and like snap this like shot, and there was one, and it's just so good. like to me, obviously this is my father and I love this man to death, but
Yeah.
just something about it, like it naturally shadows really deep in the bottom, and then it goes out to almost like he's looking through a porthole, because this is out front of his home, and he's basically surrounded by trees, and then there's an opening like right in front of the house, so it is like a tunnel. It's literally sunlight comes like straight down, and that's it. It's pretty wild. But yeah, this is I know this will always probably be like, I'm probably going to get this printed now that I actually have my own place.
Yeah.
Because there's just not a better shot of my dad, in my opinion.
And I think you should. I mean, everybody should print their work, but this one obviously has a lot of meaning to you, and I think deserves a spot as a physical handheld piece, because it's nice. It's nice to look at, but it certainly would mean a lot to you.
Yeah, hell yeah. But yeah, like I hope to eventually have a photo I like this much with just about most of the people I care about in my life.
Yeah.
Like that would be nice. And something that I kind of actively work on. And I have a couple other ones like here and there that I really like of some people that I care about, but this one is like high up there, obviously.
And that to reach that goal, what does that take from you or from anyone? Being a little bit more commanding about who you are when you're with these people and what you want to do when you're spending time with them, right?
Yeah, I mean, I just try to always shoot around especially when I see people that I haven't seen in a while, and I try to make an effort at least a little bit every day that I'm around them to like get a shot here and there. But I never try to like really sit down. I want it to be relatively natural.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever force it, but I want to make sure that I have good photos of these people that I care about before, I either, God forbid, not be able to get any more of them, or, they get to the point where you'll never really get that like life in them, especially as people grow older. Like I have some really good photos of people I know when they were pretty sick towards the end of their life. And it's like, I prefer ones like that where like, my dad's a grumpy asshole all the time, but he looks so kind of calm in that moment. Yeah. And I don't get that from him a lot, but when I do, it's really meaningful to me. So trying to capture the thing that's rare, but super important with those people.
Yeah. I think that's something that probably all of us can work on, is just being a little bit more, not authentic, but a little bit more driven to take these kinds of images, especially with people that mean the most to you.
Well, you just take the photos in general for granted now because they're so easy to do. I got all sorts of photos of people from my phone and like when we're hanging out or like goofing off and stuff. But what I learned that was really important to me in 2020, my buddy Haver passed away, and he passed away from a motorcycle accident that he had, and I was basically tasked to go through all of his like photos and footage and stuff, and I put together like a little edit that they could play like at the reception, that were like the wake party thing that we put together, and then at the funeral and stuff like that, and like trying to just collect all the photos people had of him and everything. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be nice to just, I realized there was like nothing of me. I was like, what's gonna happen if I pass and ain't nobody got no photos of me that are nice?
Yeah.
So like good ones, like high quality images, will still be, super valuable to someone when your time has come.
A deep level of artistic intention too, with basically all of these, and I'm sure with more of the ones that you're talking about that we haven't seen, that are different from just pulling that phone out and snapping the moment, which is nice to have, but it's certainly different.
That's what I mean. There was a really large amount of those little snapshot things, and that's cool. And something that Haver particularly was really good at was that dude took photos of every single cool beer he had, every cool rock he found, every single time he did something sweet and got to the top of like, they took a trip every year to the UP and did a couple of the hikes up there. Every single time he ever got to the top of that, he was, filming himself doing his thing. And I was like, man, I don't do enough of that at all.
Yeah.
And it was that, so 2020 was a huge moment for me where like I take my camera everywhere now, and I get a couple of snaps when I'm hanging out with pals, just because I never know when I'm not going to have them.
Yeah. I need to start doing that more.
Yeah. It's pretty wild. But anyway, I just wanted to go through with the lack of other people's photos, jump into some of mine. I to be fair, audience, I did ask David, but David's a busy man. He sold a lot of coffee this weekend, so he didn't prep. He didn't prep a couple more. I was gonna only do like 3, and then I ended up just saying, okay, here's a bunch. But
yeah, no, we still got a lot to look at. These are all great shots, and thank you to those who either submitted to the email or Eric again. Thanks for letting me grab the gallery.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And there will be links to Ryan's social media and Eric's social media, and then obviously I'll throw these images in a Google Drive folder if you just want to take a look at them. But yeah, very, very good stuff. I think I haven't decided what the next photo share will be. I think maybe we should think about it, and then we can kind of announce one next week.
Yeah,
because I think I started like kind of midway through the last time, and it doesn't matter. I'm fine with it being relatively arbitrary. It doesn't have to be exactly 1 month. So. We'll take a break for a week and then we'll come back with some kind of topic. I think I'm going to go a little bit more esoteric again.
Cool. I like that. And I hope for you listeners and viewers that this was a good example of kind of like a range of how you could approach any of these topics. Really, we're not looking for hard and fast rules here. Just, take it for what you think you can do with any of these topics. Yeah.
And like we always say, it's not a critique. We're not in here telling someone what's good and bad unless you specifically throw in a question, which we... anything you want to add with your photos, whether it be metadata, what it's taken with, a little side story, a little blurb about it, we'll be happy to share that as well. But if you do have any questions and you'd want a little bit of a critique, that's totally fine. But that's not the purpose of it. We just want to share people's work and, kind of create a community of talking about photos. Because the more I get excited about it, the more I'm actually going to go shoot, not just for work or not just dogs. Like obviously I'm going to take a photo of every freaking dog I run into, but sometimes I need the little bump. I need to get excited again just to be shooting.
Definitely.
But yeah, so that was cool. I didn't have any plans for rumors this week because we had a bunch of announcements. I didn't have a whole bunch of stuff. I did want to at least touch base on the one thing that we had been waiting for, which was the A7C2, the A7CR, the 16 to 35 G Master. For those of you listening, if you weren't aware, or if you're not a Sony shooter, these are pretty big announcements. We had been kind of anticipating them over the last handful of episodes.
Yeah,
and they came out. And we had a lot of feelings. David and I usually don't talk about it until we get on the podcast, but we've chatted a little bit just because we mostly inconsequential. But I guess what were your thoughts now that you've had a little bit of time to chew through?
Yeah. A7C2, great camera if you don't already own an A7C, I think. This would be just like an excellent all-arounder. Even an A7C still kind of is. There's certainly drawbacks to it that I live with. There's a couple things I really wanted that didn't come to fruition that I would have loved a joystick on these bodies. Just loved it, but it didn't happen. I don't think anybody was really expecting that. The A7CR is certainly the more interesting of the two. I have to think that that's going to actually be the one that people in general are excited about. Like you said, to have that A7R5 sensor in that body, to just be able to pick up and take anywhere, it's just incredible what they're able to put in that tiny little form factor. I'm not probably interested in either of them, to be honest with you. For me personally, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are, but having the A7C and not seeing as many of the things I wanted to see out of the A7C2, I'm not sure what I'm going to do. I think I'm going to hold on to the A7C for a while. If somebody really wants it, I probably could let it go. But it's serving its purpose, the A7C that I bought it. The reason I bought it for in the first place, to have that second body to shoot, vlogs and while I'm doing photography. And it's, I'm in no rush. If they, I don't know what it would have really taken other than a couple of little creature comfort features to make me really want to switch. But they're both great looking cameras, and the lens too looks fantastic.
Yeah, for sure. For the most part, I agree. I think I really want to get one in hand. I want to feel the bigger grip. I've handled the A7C. I like that it has a slightly bigger grip. The thing that was astonishing to me is that so many people really like the bigger grip. And the reason I would get this is because I walk around with an A7 IV in a bag every day. And the cut down size is amazing.
Yeah.
Like, so for me, I guess the long and the short of it is that I'm very interested in the A7CR, even though the naming scheme is stupid. The sensor I miss dearly. The AI autofocus stuff, it has all those features, stellar. I'm less concerned with the one card slot thing, because unless I'm doing something super important where I go out of my way to set up dual recording, that's the only time I do dual recording, is when I absolutely have to. So I was like, okay, I guess if I'm just like bopping around, if I went on a trip right now, I probably wouldn't switch to that. Like if I'm getting paid for a bunch of money, I normally am.
Right.
Because like when I go out and travel, I dump my card every day.
Yeah.
Like that's just how I travel, because I shoot a lot. So like that gets dumped every day. I wouldn't lose the whole trip. I wouldn't just leave it on one card regardless.
I don't think you're alone there. I think Sony knows exactly who's buying this camera. And I mean, can you tell me a better travel camera? Honestly,
this does everything that the Q3 does, and allows me to use all of my current glass. And I don't know. It's really hard for me to not want this camera. I definitely would like a second body. It shoots 4K 60 and has A7CII, which is what I require for a travel camera. With a travel camera, I don't worry about rolling shutter quite as much, because it's for travel stuff. Like
that was what I was going to ask you. I don't remember seeing much about the rolling shutter. Is it real bad?
It's going to be the same as the A7R5. A7R5. Yeah. So it's slow.
Yeah.
It's going to be rough, but like if I was just shooting some vacation stuff and wanted to make like a short movie, I'm not whip panning and all this other stuff. Like it's probably fine.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are looking for ultra premium everything in these cameras when they really shouldn't be, and that's one of those things. They have given more than they needed to.
Yeah,
in that camera specifically.
Well, and then I wanted to note Caleb Pike, DSLR shooter, on YouTube made a video where he basically turned an A7C II into like a little Komodo like cinema camera. And he made, I think in collaboration with somebody, this 3D printed like housing thing with a built-in fan, and that little setup is super nice on a little cage. And so if I was like trying to get into photo video, the A7C II is absolutely the best entry-level hybrid camera. It doesn't really lose anything for like the video features on the A7 IV. You do save a little bit of cash, and it's got some features that the A7 IV doesn't, like the freaking autofocus and stuff. Is going to be nuts on it. I mean,
as an A7C user, new menu, that extra help with the AF, there's a couple things that are nice about the A7C II. I don't know.
Well, the thing that would push you to really want it is if you were doing regularly paid like multicam video stuff.
Yeah.
Because like to be able to just have A7 and match the A7 IV would be a no-brainer, but you're not doing that. And the raw files are totally fine between the two cameras.
Totally.
So it would be silly. You would just be getting it because it's like kind of cool.
Yeah.
So I
do
get it.
Notice a pretty significant speed difference between the A7C and the A7 IV, and there should be. There's years between them.
Yeah, for sure.
So to know that, I'd be getting also the A7 IV's speed in the A7C II. I don't know. I keep thinking about it. There's not enough for me to really pull that trigger, but maybe one day. I don't know.
Yeah. We'll see. I'm still close. I don't like having one camera.
Yeah.
I think this kind of this does exactly what I wanted the A7R4 to do. But I couldn't keep that A7R4 because of the A7CII. Like lacking that, like it was such a pain to match that with the A7S3 or the A7 IV. And so that was the first one to go, obviously. And then, so it's interesting. I don't know that we're going to see...
Sorry, for the trips you have planned, I would just love if you got the A7CR in your hands for some of that stuff.
Well, and both would go. Like I'm taking my A7 IV
Sure.
anyway. So, but it would be nice to also just have a really fat freaking photo camera. I haven't looked into like, I assume it's the same as the S70 and the A7R4, so I just got to go back and look. But I want to know what the ISO differences are between the two ISOs for S70. Because the thing that's making me consider, and this has been really hard for the last few weeks, I'm considering getting an FX3. And the reason is there's enough stuff that like I want to get a monitor again. I think some of the stuff at work would benefit from it. And I think some of the stuff I'm doing, like I'm trying to get more into shooting some of the fitness and like sports stuff, and kitting out the camera for weight would have made like my recent Gnarly Fit CrossFit reel way better, because I have just a lot more micro jitters while trying to move the camera around and do really dynamic movement. And I think putting it back in a cage and having like a mic on it and putting a monitor on it would weigh it down enough that I'd actually get those handheld shots that I want. But it's the freaking ISO sensitivity, man. Like my A7S III's 12,800 second ISO and S-Log was freaking nuts.
Absolutely.
Like, you could just shoot and have no noise and like Twilight. It was freaking awesome. It makes traveling sweet. Like cityscapes are so cool because everything's so detailed. And I would actually shoot everything brighter and darken it with like a good LUT and stuff. And you had so much control over your freaking exposure for video in that thing that it was just unreal. So the FX3's been on my radar a little bit. I just like cannot get over the fact that it doesn't have an EVF. It makes me so mad. So we'll see. But if I can get, I'm going to see if I can get A7CR on lens rental pretty early, because that creator discount price is kind of nuts.
Yeah, it hasn't launched yet, has it? Aren't they
Still
waiting for
pre-order.
a condo or something?
Yeah, I mean, there is Sunny Condos right now, and then I don't know when the actual launch is. I actually never paid attention, but it's in pre-order right now. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. The size could be cool. I'm carrying around a freaking Pentax Spotomatic F and a A7 IV, and it fills my bag. Like it fills my sling bag. I'd love to, knock off whatever that 1.5 inches from the top to bottom that it has, because it's significantly smaller.
Yeah.
But,
I mean, looking at these 6.7 images too, it's like, do I want an A7C II CR or a Pentax 6.7?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm almost done with my second roll, so I'll have some film, not this next show, but probably the following show, unless I just go crazy and send it out in like a day and a half. But so that'll be exciting. But yeah, the film stuff. Every time I see a used 6.7 or even a Mamiya or anything like that, I'm just like, oh, it's only like $900 to $1,200 for a film camera that's going to cost me $1 million every time I use it to get film and process it.
It's getting a little better again. Right after 2020, 2021, they were real high, like 15, almost 2,000 for a kit. Now they're coming back down a little bit, but yeah, they're still up there.
There's always the 100 megapixel Sony sensor and the GFX2 coming out soon.
Oh, yeah, that's a thing.
You could just go digital and get one prime, and I just carry around the biggest camera known to man just to get these stupid photos. But yeah, I don't know. Anyway,
we'll talk about that one another day.
Yeah, that's all I really had was I wanted to kind of chat about this camera. The lens is cool. I was kind of hoping that they'd knock the 16 to 35 a little smaller. If that thing like somehow got down to like a 77 millimeter filter thread or something and it was like properly smaller, I think I'd be a little bit more stoked on it. Yeah. But I am considering it over my 20 to 70 because I just really honestly have not picked that lens up that much.
Wow.
Yeah. I shoot 35, and if it's not 35, I usually need the freaking 70 to 200.
Yeah. That makes sense.
And I mean, I'm shooting on the 28 to 70 from work right now at f2.8, and
and then you know what that would do? It would incentivize you to go for that 51.2.
Right. Well, I want the 51.4. I think the size makes it.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right.
More, but I'd get the GM 51.4 for sure.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, conversations for another time. I got a lot planned. Anyway, have I mentioned the 3 trips that I plan to take next year on the show yet?
I think you did, but you can go through it again.
Well, I got London basically locked down.
Cool.
And then I have told work that I'm going to make all of these trips happen. So let me know what I need to do it.
Nice.
And me and my buddy Kyle, I think, is pretty locked in for Korea, which would be in May. And then Evan and Hope are like full send. So Korea and London, I think, are going to happen regardless. Then we'll just have to see if Japan happens in the fall or not.
Okay.
So London, Korea, Japan should be pretty epic.
I can't wait. I'm excited to see what you get.
Yeah, 12 days in Korea gives me a lot of time to do some pretty cool stuff. So
heck yeah.
But
that's awesome.
Yeah. You got anything else for us?
That's it. That's really everything. I was excited to do this Photoshare stuff. I've been looking forward to that. Yeah, that's it, man.
Yeah. If you're still listening, thank you. This was a longer one, but we just want to say that we do appreciate every like 5 of you that comments and shares their images and talks to us on either Instagram or on YouTube. We're just doing these podcasts because we're nerdy and we like to talk about stuff, and we might as well bring people into the conversation. So if you want to leave us a review, if you've been enjoying it, if you just want to comment and talk some shit, please do that as well. But also, be on the lookout for our next Photoshare. We'd love to have you submit and talk about your photos.
Yeah. I mean, I know that we have a lot of listeners out there who are taking amazing shots. So I'm probably going to slide into a couple more DMs to request some people if we don't get some submissions next time, because there's some work out there that I would love to feature.
For sure. Agreed. As far as that, be sure to just start up a conversation. What do you feel is the most important component of a portrait? Was there any of these shots that you particularly liked? All of the links for all of the people, including David and I, are in the show notes. So, go drop those folks a follow or just check out their stuff and throw them some likes. Mm-hmm. And we'll yap at you later.
Thank you, guys. Till next time.
Bye.